Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be in the next React component. And this one's going to be pretty simple, so I'll just talk about it in detail, like what you need here. So essentially we're building a tabs that displays content of an active tab. And we can take a look, basically it looks like this. So we have the highlighted active tab here, and then we can just do this. So every tab will have some text. So we'll just do this kind of same thing. So we'll have an active tab that the default one be highlighted. You could think about adding props to have like some other tab highlighted by default, but we're not gonna do that. That's like extensibility if you want, like maybe you give it a bunch of different things and you can specify which one you want to be highlighted. But we'll just default to the first one. So essentially it's just something like this. So I guess thinking about how we can do this, this one should be pretty straightforward. So in React, you want to think about like, what do I need? And then like, how do I actually make this component? So here, all we really need is just like, we can have these titles in an array. And then essentially when we click on it, like these can be in a button. We can just show the text for them. So we can have something like an object, and this is like a good pattern to have of like data. So we can have every single data element can have like a title and a like body or text or something. And these can be in an array. So we'll have an array of these guys. And then when they click on the title, it'll just show the text under them. So essentially we'll have an array of data and like the index of the highlighted element. And then we can just map through all of this and pick which one we highlight. So let's just make this data first of all. And typically you'll have this data, you'll fetch it through some API or whatever, but we'll just write it in here. So we can just say like, it's going to be in here. So it'll be an array of objects. And then you also want to have, because you're going to like map through these typically to show all these things for the buttons, you want to have some like unique identifier so you can have a key. In this case, we can just use the title because they're all unique. So that would be fine. But you can have an ID or some other thing if you want it as well. It's also pretty common. Okay, so we're going to have a title. And then the title will be called, so we'll have an HTML with a text of whatever this guy is. And then two more of those. So this will be CSS, JavaScript. So yeah, copy all this in. Done. And the last one. Okay. So essentially our object can take this data and we'll just say that the first element is highlighted by default. So we'll go tabs, we'll give it this data. That's it. So you should be able to think like the prop is just going to be this, and then these items are going to be in an object because like the title that's clicked on is going to be related to what we want to show. Okay. And then in here, we don't need all of this anymore. So you can see there's like a button and then a p tag. So we can get rid of all of that and just do that ourselves. And yeah, the state we want is like the highlighted guy. So we can say, we can have like an active or something. Active tab. And like set active tab. We'll just have the default be active. You could also have some other checks here, like maybe if your data is an empty array, return null or something. So those are just some other things to consider that you can add. In this case, I'm not going to do it though. But yeah, you could say like, you can just do that at the top, like if the data is an empty array, return null, or right below the use state. Okay. So essentially we want to map through the data. We want to have these be buttons. So we're going to do this. We're going to say data map and call like item or whatever this is. So we want the item. We don't need the index. Actually, we do need the index because we want to know like which one to set active. So item index. And we basically want to have a button here. So we want to have a button for the item title that they can click on. Oops. Okay. And then we also want a p tag with the actual thing. So p tag, and then we'll worry about like setting the active one after this. So this will just be item text. Okay. So we need use state. All right. And then let's see what error JSX parent. Okay, so we can just wrap this in a div. Actually, we don't want to wrap this in a div. Yeah, so we definitely. So I think what we want to actually do is we want to just map the buttons, and then we can display the other element. So essentially, we can map the buttons here, and then basically we only want to show. Like we want to have these buttons, and then we only want to show one element. And the way we could do this is we can have this map, and these buttons need a key. So that'll be the, you can use whatever. We'll just go titles will, because these are unique, but as long as we have something unique. Okay. Okay, it looks like we have duplicates, which is interesting. If I get rid of this key, do I have too many items in my data? No. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so this is fine. Now essentially the next thing we want to do is we want to only show the active element. So we can do that pretty easily actually. So we can, instead of mapping here, we can have the p tag here. And then in here we'll have the data at index active. And then we'll show the text for that. And that's it. Okay. And then this is active tab. All right, so now we have this working, but we don't have these. So now you want to think about like, okay, well, when I click on a tab, what should happen? It should basically set this index as active. So this is like 0, 1, 2. Whatever we click on, that index needs to be active. Pretty easy to do. So we can just go on click, takes out callback, and we can go set active tab index. And now when we click on it, then that'll be active, and then we can basically, so we have like the functionality that we need. So then a couple more things here. So the main thing actually is we basically want to show that like when this is active, we don't have to worry about like styling and getting all of this. I don't really care about that, like getting this exact stuff, but we want to somehow differentiate for our active tab. Like we want to have something there. And the way to do that is basically, because this is just going to affect the button, we can essentially here add like a class name that's going to be conditional. And when it's active, we'll have some class name, and then when it's inactive, we'll have another class name. So we can just go like class name. And typically you want to have like before the on click. So let's put it here. So essentially we can just say like, okay, for this index, is this active? So is this the active tab? If it is, we'll call it like active tab. And if it's not, we'll call it inactive tab or something like that, whatever you want. Okay, and now, like this is gonna be the same no matter what, but these need to change. So like I said, I'm not gonna style this whole thing. I'm just gonna do some simple thing to differentiate. So we can go like active tab, can have whatever, let's say background colors like purple or something, and then the color will be like white or blah blah blah. And then inactive tab you can leave the way it was. So honestly this is fine. Like if you want the inactive tab to be the way it was, we'll just do a really simple inactive tab as well. So maybe background color white or something like this. And then we can do some other simple thing for like a button. We can have like a margin or whatever just to separate them out. So we can have a margin right in like 10 pixels or whatever. Okay. All right. So something like this. Like I said, you can keep styling, but essentially this is kind of gives us what we want. And yeah, so the basic idea here is, like I said, you want to have your data in objects. That's going to make it really easy, and you want to have it connected. So the title needs to be in the same place as the text. That's going to make it really easy to show what you want. And then also have this active tab use state so we can know which one's active. And then set class names dynamically, whatever you want. And then you can add a bunch of like hover or whatever, just whatever you want. But this is like the core of what you need, and then you can add a bunch of other stuff to make this better and so on. So a pretty simple, quick question. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.